solutions to be able to solve a lot of the lack of transparency and the backdoor deals that happen. Yeah.
We could also do it for other things, like let's say there's a band who's like just trying to start out. They're doing small little bar gigs, but they actually want to go on tour. They already have like a fan base. Like, wouldn't it be nice if they could, let's say, do a small Kickstarter to raise funds for the tour that they want to? But as a condition, they have to kind of like pre-schedule everything with a bunch of venues, and they could demonstrate that on the blockchain. And if people submit and it reaches, you know, the $80,000 if necessary, then they'll go on tour.
Right.
Now, why
hold them accountable for that?
Why would they want to do something like that? Well, then maybe the people who give that little bit of money initial will get something back, or they get free swag, or like first dibs on tickets, whatever it be that they're trying to kind of sell. They now garner support from the community to go on doing this tour and kind of be larger.
Yeah.
Yes.
So are the rules you predefine, like, are those unchangeable? Like when, like for a condition, like you'll get paid if this contract goes through. How does the system determine if that contract actually went through or not?
How does it determine if it went? I mean, it just depends if that function gets executed. It will get executed.
So
yeah, once the contract is living on the blockchain, that's how
That's
it
just what
is.
it is.
That's the agreement, and it cannot be changed.
You could structure the code. So in order to do all this, you write in a programming language called Solidity. There's that one's JavaScript-like, and there's another one for Python called Serpent and Venom, I believe. But you write your logic in those programs, and depending on how you structure it, where you allow for changing and like the conditions on how to change it and when to change it, you can specify that. But that's just a software architecture decision. It could just be static, and you have no way of changing it. Well, then that's how you wrote it.
And are smart contracts also transparent on the blockchain?
Correct.
It's open
You can
source.
see the code. You actually get like this big JSON object, so you can get like it's called an ABI, but it's like a little function representation.
Yes, it's an interesting concept to have a fan essentially be a shareholder in the success of an artist. Right now, we go to stores. I don't know if anyone's actually buying music, but the $10 that you pay a month for your Spotify subscription, that's not going directly to the artist. There's this very long trail, and some minuscule amount of cents ends up back in my pocket and other artists' pocket. Whereas in this case, the funding can be direct peer-to-peer, and fast and frictionless. So that's some applications in the music industry.
Is there any aspects of the music industry that you might like question? Like, what about this case or anything like that? No questions.
Cool. Let's move on. Right on. So sharing economy.
Yeah.
So right now, the sharing economy is kind of a misnomer because you have Uber and Airbnb and Lyft kind of sitting in the middle of those transactions, taking their cut. They're the ones developing that platform. A lot of the data is being stored on their siloed databases to which you do not have access. So although if you're the driver and I'm the passenger, there's this kind of exchange like, okay, I'd like to get a ride with Angelo somewhere. Uber's sitting in the middle taking a cut. In the Ethereum blockchain world, there would be no Uber or no Airbnb sitting in between. There would be an open platform, and I could list my house on this open, Ethereum Airbnb or this Ethereum Uber, and essentially rent out my car and get paid directly by the person who gets in there. And you can write in all sorts of interesting reputation contracts to kind of verify that indeed the person is who they say they are and that they've got a nice rating. Kind of a lot of the logic that, let's say, Uber is handling can live on an autonomous Ethereum smart contract.
And be visible to everyone, and you can know what the rules are.
That's right.
In the future, it won't be necessarily like Uber, but maybe like a conglomerate of a bunch of different apps that you might use. So you might, like as a driver, you might want to specify, like, you know what, I only want to deal with people who have a 7-Up and are willing to pay this much and are like driving between this other locations. And then everyone else who might want to drive will, do what they do, and the system will figure out and try to match and give suggestions to people. Now that system is still doing a lot of work, so you'd be paying into it. But now it's kind of just everywhere. It's not just Uber. It's actually just I'm using this type of insurance company because I like it. I'm doing this sort of reputational bit because I like the group there. I'm paying this map service. Paying this, whatever it is that might be in between that the driver or the rider would like to specify.
So if someone were to create, like you were talking about, right, Ethereum Uber, right? And if that's the open platform that a user and a driver are using, how does the creator of that open platform, like how does that company become profitable? Like how do they earn money if they're not taking a cut?
Well, they could be. They also could. They could take a small cut fee for like establishing in that. But at least it'll be everyone will know what that is, and they'll be getting a service out of it. But they also could be. We didn't talk too much about mining, but in order to do any sort of transaction, you have to pay a little bit. That was a small little blurb on one of those slides.
Yeah,
If you actually
Ether is the
Yes.
currency. So what Bitcoin is to the Bitcoin blockchain, Ether is to the Ethereum blockchain, and it's a gas, I guess you could say, that enables the execution of these contracts. It's a very small amount per execution, so that amount of money at a high transaction volume, if you are managing those nodes and mining those transactions, if you're that company, you could essentially make that money. More future leaning, there could be entire corporations sitting on the blockchain that are entirely autonomous, that are run and managed by artificial intelligences. That's some more far-reaching kind of
you can
thoughts.
like the business rules or something. Like let's say the AI is connected to the stock market or a bunch of other social, economical, like Twitter, whatever, and it's receiving all those inputs, and all it's doing is like modifying small bits and pieces of the contract. Like there's uproar in downtown Los Angeles, and so like it might up the price or lower the price. I don't know, whatever, how benevolent it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so technically there wouldn't even need to be a centralized corporation.
Yeah, and it could really be boiled down to just a handful of people. A lot of the middle people, the people in the middle, kind of become unnecessary or just less required.
That's right.
And if you needed a team of 10, you might need a team of 2, that kind of thing.
Right. So, for example, there's no Bitcoin corporation. There's no Ethereum corporation. There's the core developers who maintain the code base.
Yeah, the Ethereum Foundation.
Yeah, the Ethereum Foundation, that's right. Question?
I think you kind of just answered it because you just mentioned something like, the people that establish it. So maybe they're like a initial establishment, payment, and then they kind of just go off the map. But there is like they're still the core developers.
Yeah, that's right. And they could actually have a specific Ethereum Uber token based on the Ethereum blockchain. So that the token can be kind of a value representation, an abstraction of value that is used specifically in that application, right? And as more people use that and buy into that token, those tokens rise in value as per any currency, supply and demand. So the founding developers could have a token release, for example, and own a substantial amount of that initial token. And as their app usage grows, so don't their holdings in those tokens, that can then be used to further develop out the protocol, the platform.
So in all sincerity, the way someone might make money would be just to kind of, for a couple of years, work on a project, create this sort of thing, do a token release where like they do a $20 million token release, they still have 1 million tokens for whatever reason, and after in 2-3 years when the value goes up, they start selling solar pieces, and then they work on another project, and they kind of just keep doing that over and over again. It'd be a perfectly valid structure.
Yeah.
All smart contracts go through the same, so there's like the token release, but that's all built on top of the same Ethereum.
Yes,
so
that's right.
All those transactions still run through the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then for smart contracts, we talk about writing and modifying data as being the expensive part of transacting, right?
Right.
And reads are free. Can I, if I'm clever enough, let's say, can I basically encode any kind of data on to that smart contract I want?
Correct. So yes, there is a limit though. Right now, it's the base unit for smart contract is gas, and the gas unit is 3 million. And so in order to do any operations, like an if might cost 1,000 gas, a comparison would do 2,000 gas. And so you can build your logic, and if you have it something seriously complex that reaches that 3 million, it'll actually just fail and stop.
Okay.
That's part of I guess an issue with not an issue, but that's the Solidity is Turing complete, which just means that you could write anything and do anything in it. And gas is just a heuristic to say like, you know what, I'm going to allow only this much. And the purpose is so that someone can't just like keep like hammering the network and saying like, do this operation, do this complex operation and not get paid. So if I really want to fuck up the system, I'm going to have to pay for it. I'm not going to get that for free. Because if I want to change something, I have to pay 3 million gas and it gets a little all used up and I get back an error. So like, I don't know, why would I want to do that? Just wasting money. Maybe if it's in Gillis, I guess, if I really want to fuck with them.
Is that basically just to keep the blocks or the transactions small and fit?
No, it's actually just to mediate the desire of someone to kind of force everyone to do work that they don't need to do.
Okay.
And that limits
Incentivizing good behavior.
Yes,
Prevents bad actors.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of protocols built in that prevent people from cheating.
Trying to align everyone's incentives. That number is also defined by the miners. So there could be miners who really want to accept 6 million or something like that. Maybe the Uber, the code is just seriously complex, and so they will have their own miners that will accept that 6 million gas limit if they want. And that's up to them.
Do you, just real quick, do you find that that amount of gas, the typical amount of gas, is limiting?
No, it can be at some point. No, I think it's okay.
Would you say it keeps it primarily transactional versus like putting harsh computation out on them?
Correct. You don't want to do computations and stuff like that on it. You would do the off-chain and probably get the result story. So like I would not want to store a JSON object or an image on the blockchain. I would probably just store a hash and put that JSON out somewhere else.
But the transactional logic will be executed through the contract.
Okay. There's a whole other system called IPFS, which is
interplanetary files.
Yeah.
So like I could like save that on that, has a JSON object with an ID, and then tell the blockchain like, well, the ID to my data is this thing in a smaller data structure. So if I want to read it, my application will go read the blockchain. Oh, this is the hash, and it knows it has to go to IPFS. So it goes to IPFS, grabs the data, and then returns to the requester. Cool. Yeah. So here, like I'm trying to say, like, there's Uber, there's going to be a DApp, but inside the DApp, there's also could be just a small little services that people generate.
And DApp is distributed app, by the way.
So like any distributed app can have just a bunch of subsystems that are being paid for providing a service, and everyone can just see what it is and can either choose to use or not depending on the application.
All right, healthcare.
Sounds harsh. Does anyone like live overseas or like gone to hospitals overseas, anything like that, or like gone to multiple hospitals? Like you go to a hospital here, and then like you go to San Francisco and you have to go to a hospital over there. All right. So anyone know what HIPAA is? Mm-hmm. All right. So that's HIPAA, if you don't know, is this like 30,000 page thing you have to sign when you go into a doctor. It's just a bunch of laws and compliances so that your data is kept for you and with security things. But what I'm trying
to me like a smart contract.
Yeah, it's a smart contract. But the reason is just to protect you. Is that you actually have your data and only you can have access to that data. With Ethereum, like cryptography, we can actually create public and private keys and say like the only person who has access to this data is if you have this private key. Now, I'm going to go over an example of like how it can make life easy. Let's say I break my leg right here. I'm going to go to the hospital here and get an X-ray. I'm gonna have to sign some certain things out once I get my drugs, and everything's hunky-dory. I go back home to Los Angeles and I need to like show my actual doctor my X-ray. So what I have to do, I have to sign some HIPAA documents. The nurse will fax it to the hospital here. They'll like receive it. They'll do some verification to make sure that they're not getting like bogus requests. They'll log it. And then they'll like walk over to the X-ray machine, go back and like scan it, and then send it back.
And that costs money too.
Yeah, that's like there's like 4 people involved, right? It'd be nicer if, say, I break my leg, I go to the doctor.
If you broke your leg, yeah.
The doctor goes, okay, cool, I have your X-ray, and they upload it somewhere. They encrypt it, they upload it somewhere, and they save the hash on a smart contract that I only have access to. Right. So the only person who can like decrypt it and actually see it is me because I have that private key. No one else does. Right. Everyone can see what the hash is, but it's gobbledygook to them. So in my application, I receive that, I sign it, it's mine. I go to my doctor, I go, okay, doctor, what's your hash? Okay, it's drkevorkian.eth. I add it to, I don't know, that just came to mind. I add it to the application field like Dr. Kevorkian, me, access to my X-ray, I click enter, I wait like 10 seconds. Now he can go to some other portal, put my name in, and actually see my X-ray, right? Like that's all it took. There wasn't having to all this like manpower in the middle. It was
All the
literally
intermediaries,
yeah,
all the friction and time, because if his leg is broken,
yeah, I'm like waiting forever.
yeah, that's not fair to people who are sick when time is of the essence. And this would reduce those frictions
Yeah, it's
tremendously.
literally just like a field, an enter, and like now they have it. All the securities that HIPAA kind of are trying to enforce kind of go away. And it's because I have access to my information and I get to decide who it does. And if I don't like the doctor because he says, whatever, he looked at me bad that day, I could just go back to the portal and like remove his permissions. And like go to another doctor and add that person to allow them to have access to my...
You could have like a shared private key with a specific doctor, for example.
Yeah, I mean, there could be different kind of mechanisms to kind of manage that. But
Right.
ultimately, we have access, not like everyone else who's doing all this extra work, right?
And something to note as well is that my identity as Jason and Angelo's identity is living inside of this encrypted hash. So although all of our data is transparent to everyone on the network, it doesn't funnel back to me as Jason, right? So there could be an example like, let's say, a blockchain database, an Ethereum database, where you could essentially type in your symptoms as a doctor and have access to this unified database of all of the potential issues with this particular patient that have been logged onto the blockchain that are transparent and available to everyone in the entire world, not in these siloed, opaque databases. And you could even run some interesting artificial intelligence out there to find correlations to help cure cancer, or it could be pretty incredible if we get more users involved in this kind of transparent ledger.
And for that example, not everything has to be run on the blockchain, but rather it could be an ecosystem where, does anyone, was it the SETI project from the late 90s? Does anyone know what that is? So the SETI project was a bunch of satellites or
Radio telescopes?
yeah, right, there you go. That were collecting a bunch of data, but they had all this information. And they're like, well, we're trying to find a specific kind of signal. Our computers are kind of slow, so can we like borrow yours for a little bit? So you'd run a program and it'll give you like a chunk of the data and you process it, and you get another chunk, and you process it, and you get another chunk and process it. So there could be a system later on that's just like the open AI, well, that already is already taken, but just a system where you can kind of run you gift your computer resources that are unused to process all this information, and you can get a small reward for it. Like let's say a company's using this software to generate drugs, and when they sell those drugs, because you contributed X amount of resources, you're entitled to some portion of the revenue that gets generated. Yes.
Isn't GPU sharing already existed?
Yeah, yes, and in this sort of system you can kind of create it so that I can keep track of how much resources people are giving and whatnot. And it could be done off-chain, and that's perfectly valid too. But now, I might, if I want, if like they get paid, I kind of, how do I do that off-chain? If I can see the payment on the chain that they received it, and I can prove that I did 10% of the work, I should get 10% of the funds, and I can get that immediately. Versus an off-chain where I'm just kind of like SOL until they decide to give me whatever they decide I should get.
But that would just be the processing and maybe resultants put on the chain. You wouldn't embed the computation.
No.
That's correct,
It would just be logging like the actual things that I did, and there's a whole other kind of structure that we have not gone into, and I probably don't want to because that's probably maybe like talk to. But there are ways to kind of allow for sharing of resources to be logged and tracked, and then you can verify that, and that can be put on the smart contract that if money goes in, you can get paid immediately.
How are we in time?
You guys have you guys have 20 something minutes.
Okay, cool, awesome. Let's move on.
Any questions? Any other like weird scenarios or yes?
Yeah.
Can contracts call it a contract since they're not the same blockchain?
Yes, they can call contracts everywhere. Well, everywhere on the Ethereum.
So it's technically possible to have a situation where you could sign a contract where the Airbnb would call like Uber for you to bring you from like.
Correct. Actually, I have that in my. I have another slide that does that.
Healthcare in case you have mishap in the hotel, get an Uber.
Correct. You can. Yeah. That's what I was talking about. Additional services. So if I want to like rent out the thing, the Airbnb renter could say like, I will only accept people who have this type of insurance of 20K. I can provide an Uber for whatever amount, and those additional services can be tacked on inside of the DApp.
So it's like modular.
Yes,
Yeah.
it can be modular depending on how it's written.
You buy a ticket to a show, It knows where you're staying in town. It calls the Uber for you before the show because it can see what time the show is at, how long it's going to take you from where you're staying to the event.
Yeah.
Automates that whole process.
Real cool.
Yeah. So,